Hey everybody, this is Austin and welcome to the final episode of Project Mehr. Today is the day you all have been waiting for and I have been dreading because we're finally going to play this guitar and see how it sounds. Because you know what? Ultimately, it doesn't matter how pretty the guitar is, you know, what materials I made it out of, or what machine I used to produce it, or tools or manufacturing processes. If it doesn't actually function as a musical instrument, then I've kind of missed the mark. And so, you know, seeing how this is my first build, and actually, fun fact, which we might talk about later, my first guitar, electric guitar that I've owned in nearly 20 years, I definitely need to know where I can improve the next time around. So I thought to myself, who better to help me run this guitar through its paces than a luthier and fellow member of this community? So I've actually brought over a friend of mine, a member of my Discord server, who's going to help us put this guitar to the test. So Rick, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone how you met?
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much. The work you do here is, I think, so useful for the people trying to do what you're demonstrating. It's just amazing.
Thank you.
So I found your YouTube channel. You were kind of halfway through doing Project Mehr, and I had been trying to get my CNC machine up and running, meaning past assembly and actually producing things that were what they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And as I was sort of struggling through the machine issues and the design issues and the Fusion 360 issues, I was able to follow along and actually design my own guitar. And I'm most of the way through getting the cam working.
Now you're the owner of Celestial Instruments?
Celestial Instruments. So it's
yeah.
So in the middle of the pandemic, I, like many other people, decided to step out of my day job and the normal things I'm doing and
that's what I'm doing here.
Do what I love. And so I started Celestial Instruments officially last fall, but it's been about 2 years.
Okay.
And I've just been prototyping and trying to get things exactly right. I don't want to put something out there before it's ready.
Sure.
But I've been making guitars as a hobby for over 15 years.
Okay.
I've probably made between 15 and 20 electric guitars and a
you
couple of
got
acoustic
me.
instruments.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, just from the little bit I've seen, this is so much better than the first several that I made.
I really hope so. We'll see.
Anyways.
Yeah.
But I found you, and I went on the Discord community, and I was able to actually get help to some of the current issues that I was working on. There's a core group of people there that are just really responsive, and they just love doing this, as near as I can tell.
I have been so overwhelmed by the amount of effort people put in that Discord server.
Mm-hmm.
You know, literally, like, somebody who's never talked to anybody on that server before can come in and ask a question, and then 3 people will send them a fully fixed CAD model of what they need to get the job done.
It's like, here you go, I just whipped this up.
I just whipped this up in 10 minutes, and it's like a whole guitar. You know, it's Mattia, I'm looking at you. But it's been awesome, and I was so happy to have you there, and I know you have some coding experience and stuff from Microsoft, and that actually helped me a lot with the parametric fretboard video. We had talked about that a lot, solving those problems. And you've also helped me out a lot with the audio for my channel.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you and I have gone back and forth as I got my new Earthworks Icon Pro mic. Yeah, you and I went back and forth on that, and that was actually very helpful, so thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I think, like most people, are just share what we have and what we're experienced with.
Yeah, that's ultimately why I wanted that Discord server in to begin with, is you know, share ideas and help each other out. So, well, you wanna take a look at it?
Yeah, let's.
You want to see what you think?
Oh man.
Yeah, just pull it off. There you go.
This is so. It's so beautiful. You did a great job with the finish. It's very even. You can't tell that it's been finished.
Okay,
right?
That's good. That means
which is wonderful.
Natural, yeah.
Yeah, well, for the natural finish you're going for, it's like the lines are very smooth. I can't see any obvious tool marks or sanding
I know
marks.
where some exist, but I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, but since I didn't do it, I don't know where they are.
I know where all the flaws on that thing are, but
that's why it's always better to have someone else make a guitar for you. Right?
Yeah.
I really like between the fretboard and the neck, it's just very smooth. The
It
frets.
took me a long time to get the edges of the frets to not be sharp.
I know, that's
I worked at that for a long, like almost like a week or two, because no matter what I did, every time I filed it, there was another burr or something I had to remove.
Yeah, I watched. I made sure I watched your Fretwork before I came over here.
Yeah.
Just to kind of see how it was. Fretwork is, insane. My first neck did not turn out like this. So you did really well.
Now I see that you're looking at.
I'm trying to see
looking at my warp.
I'm trying to see the warp. It's
Yeah.
definitely there, but the strings are parallel to the frets, which is kind of what matters. Yeah, there's very. I can tell if I dig into it. I can tell that there's fret burrs, but
Yeah.
it's minimal. Don't take my negative comments.
No,
this is really good.
I've been craving it
This
because
is insane.
I've been the only one staring at this guitar for almost 6 months now. So yeah.
Like this doesn't feel like a homemade guitar,
Okay.
right?
I'll take that.
So the next thing I look at when I kind of just play it is like, how does it feel? So I usually grab them on the body somewhere.
Yep.
Because can I feel the vibrations in my body when I'm touching it? So I can feel them pretty well here and down here. That's sort of like the liveness.
Yep.
And then, what about the neck? Do I feel it there too? And mahogany is sometimes a little bit. I think that's one of its downsides.
Is it so dense?
Is it so dense I don't feel it? But this feels pretty lively.
Okay.
Which is great.
Now I did notice that when I actually built the guitar, I thought it was going to be a little taller. It's actually a fairly small body.
Yeah, that was the thing.
I thought it was going to be much bigger, and then when I actually built it, I was like, ooh. But I like it. It fits me comfortably. But it's a little
fits.
smaller than I thought it would be.
It's. I was actually surprised too, because
Yeah.
all I've seen is the pictures on Discord and on YouTube, and I was like, oh, that's smaller than I thought it was.
Yeah.
But it's very comfortable. The angle here is nice. This curve is, if you get this curve wrong, like they just don't sit right.
Yeah. I did notice that it is a little neck heavy. So if you release tension on your hand, it wants to fall forward quite a bit. It's got a little bit of a neck dive, but when I designed it, I actually balanced it with the center of gravity to be behind the neck strap button on the front, which I never actually installed. And so
you're gonna put it right here?
Yeah, I was gonna put it right there, and on the center, basically directly behind the bridge, on the center line.
So you can actually model the center of balance on it?
Yeah, so what you can do in Fusion is you can find it, if you assign your materials correctly to everything, you can find out where the center of gravity is. And I made sure that the center of gravity was at least behind the front strap button. So that way, if anything, it wants to tilt upward,
Right.
but you want it kind of generally somewhere close. You don't want it like right at it,
Yeah.
but you want it somewhere around that range. So that way, when you have it centered on you, the center of gravity is kind of central to your body. And that's where I designed it. But because I designed it that way, and I've mostly been playing it on my lap, the balance is different.
The balance, that's more about this angle,
Yeah.
right? Where that's driven by this being here.
Yeah.
But I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
I think that's
I'll show you that before we leave. So one thing I was curious about, what you thought about, was actually the nut width, because now on my acoustic, and most acoustics that I've played recently have all been fairly narrow nut widths, like 1.5, 1 5/8, etc. And I kind of have a little bit of fat fingers, and so I had a hard time, fretting some of the chords on some of these. So I wanted to have a little bit wider of a neck up at the headstock, but I noticed that I might have gone a little bit too wide, and so I wanted to know what you thought about it.
Well, so I have a lot of guitars, and so I'm used to a lot of variation.
Yeah.
This is, I think, wider than most, especially most of my electrics.
I think it is 1 7/8.
Yeah, and that's 1 7. That's like the upper end.
Yeah. Most Fenders are what, 1 5/8, 1 3/4.
1.625.
Yeah, that 1 5/8. Yeah.
And this, this it's just a little wide. It's not a lot. Like it doesn't. I can play it fine, right?
I think the actual string to string spacing is like 0.33. Or something like that. So it's got a fairly wide string spacing, but I found that preferable, but I do feel like I might have gone a little too far.
I don't know. I think it's
Yeah.
it feels like a wide fender, or
Okay.
like a classical, almost, right?
Well, that kind of makes sense because growing up, my dad always played nylon string acoustics,
Mhm.
and that's what I actually started playing, and I got pretty used to that for a while.
Yeah.
And then when I switched to this, it was jarring, and I had to make that transition, and then I kind of wanted to go back to that a little bit, but maybe on an electric, it's
Yeah,
not ideal.
and it's I don't know. It's maybe just a little bit wide, but it's not. It's like I wouldn't. After 10 minutes, I would be fine with it.
Okay.
The other thing is the neck isn't big, right? The neck isn't thick, so it's not like a baseball bat neck or anything. So it doesn't, unless you want this, it doesn't matter that much.
Well, do you want to maybe run us through some sounds? Let's run it through 100% clean, no effects.
Yep.
Or at least minimal reverb.
Yeah. So everything is off. Let's start with the neck pickup, and I'm just gonna play some straight chords.
Okay. Which, just for everybody's information, when I asked Martin to make me the pickups, I asked him to make the neck position pretty warm. So a pretty bass-oriented neck pickup. And then I wanted the bridge pickup to be much more twangy. So there's quite a bit of separation, which you'll probably find out, between the bridge pickup and the neck pickup.
Yeah.
So
let's do some chords. That's nice. It's got nice harmonics. Starting to get some dirt in the amp a little bit, right?
yeah.
Let's try the bridge. I know that's really nice.
Yeah, it's much more twangier.
That puts a lot higher. It's driving the amp. I'm gonna turn this down just a smidgen so that it's. Really balanced in the middle.
Now that's my personal favorite. It's a nice balance between the super warmth of the neck and the twanginess of the bridge.
Let's turn some of these on. It's
very different.
it is. It's
when you switch to the bridge, it immediately punched through.
right.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's like you said, I don't want to say unbalanced. They're just very different.
Yeah.
And it's about you have to kind of be really deliberate. It's like, oh, I'm in the bridge, so I have to play like this.
Yep.
Whereas
each selection is a very almost different playing style.
Yeah.
Like how much attack you put on it.
Yep. It's almost Strat-like.
Yeah.
Not quite, but very close. And these frets, I don't know if I said this before, they're super smooth, so the bends are
Easy to overbend them very
Yeah.
easily.
I'm gonna go do the giddy fuzz thing.
Yep.
It's great. It's this plays really well.
Good.
You should be super thrilled.
Yeah.
First guitar.
if you, after now having played it, what are some of the things you're noticing that maybe could be improved, or what are your, also maybe on the other end, what's your favorite things you've found so far?
So honestly, I love the bends on this.
The smoothness of the frets.
And that's back to the wide nut width.
Yeah.
And what's the radius on this?
12-inch.
12. Right. So it's a.
Yeah.
It's that. It's the fret spacing, and you can. Right.
Yeah, and I noticed you can bend even on the lower frets quite easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that I love.
Now these are a set of 10s. They're 10 to 46.
Yeah.
Balanced tension strings.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, no matter where you are,
It feels super easy.
Yeah.
And I switch back and forth between 9s and 10s on the guitars that I played.
Perfect. Well, I think you guys might also want to hear me play it.
I would love to hear you play it.
Now I am definitely not a savant, but I have played a lot of acoustics, and I do play quite a bit of fingerstyle. But I have a couple.
So you probably don't want the.
I have a couple tricks up my
the
sleeve.
Gaiety Germanian photos.
Yeah. Give me clean with a bit of reverb, maybe a little bit of delay. Just kind of soulful, maybe with a little bit of drive as well, but edge of break. One of my favorite little licks. It's just like the very intro to one of Chris Buck's songs, but just that little. However he does that, it's awesome. Here's, if I can actually play it, although I'm used to playing this on acoustic, is Como Rebi by Matheus Asado. So we'll see. It's an acoustic song, but. I had it pretty well all the way till the very end, and then I lost it. But so here's a quick story, and the reason why at the very beginning of the video I mentioned this is my first electric guitar that I've owned in over 20 years. And the reason for that is when I was a young little hooligan, 13, 14 years old, somewhere in that range, I was begging, I watched my dad play his acoustic guitar, and I loved watching him play, and so I begged him to teach me guitar. So he taught me to play guitar, basic major minor chord shapes, etc. You know, A minor, D, and I loved it. And then I wanted to play metal and rock, so I asked for an electric guitar. They eventually bought me one for Christmas, and that I tried to play every Metallica song I could think of, like everybody. And about 6 months to a year later, maybe somewhere in that range, it's been forever, I got in trouble with the law, and my parents had to make me give up that guitar in order to help pay for what they spent getting me out of trouble. And so I didn't have a guitar anymore, and I would just practice on my dad's acoustic, which is why I always played acoustics growing up. And I don't know why I never bought a guitar when I got out on my own and did my own thing. It just didn't occur to me, because then I was focused on career and doing other stuff and listening to music more so than playing it. And so then eventually, when I learned how to CAD model and everything, like the thought of having a guitar, my own guitar, you know, something that I built, because I started doing DIY projects, I'm like, it just stuck in my brain like an itch I couldn't scratch. And then so I built my CNC with the size, assuming that one day I'm going to build a guitar again, and I'm going to have an electric guitar again, which I hadn't had since I was like 14. And so eventually, 5 or 6 years later, after 30 YouTube videos and showcasing how to model guitars, because I spent most of my time, I wasn't going to build a guitar until I was satisfied with how I modeled it. And that took me the better part of 2 or 3 years, which is, by that point, I'm like, okay, well, there's not many good resources online, so I'm going to start posting videos. Started doing that, and eventually you guys started pressuring me to actually make the guitar. Like, what, dude, you have all these videos, when the hell are you going to make it? And so I was like, okay, you know what, I think it's time. And so that's how this guitar actually kind of came about. That's the short version, but...
Well, that's funny, because I wasn't going to I didn't want to make I was going to take someone else's designs and make those on the CNC first. And then after I found your stuff, I was like, well, I'm not going to, this is hard enough. I'm just going to not make one until I design it myself. But the body, it only took me about a week. I think I kind of locked myself in the basement. Watched your videos, put them on pause.
Now, the question is, were you recording while you did it? Because I think I probably could have built mine in a week if I didn't have to make videos about it.
No, well, I literally just, I had your video up on one monitor and Fusion on the other monitor, and so I would pause and do the thing and go back and forth. Now, I went back and tweaked it, but that got me all the way through the cam on it.
Was that my Cam Basics video, or was that the actual guitar body one?
I had a hard time watching your Cam Basics video because it wasn't about guitars.
Oh.
Well, and I went back and watched it later, but I had to be enmeshed in not understanding Cam until I went back and watched it, because I tried to watch it at first, but it was a box, and you presented it, and it was really great. It just was, my head wasn't there.
It was just a gift box, but essentially it was like, okay, we're going to go through every setting in the menus in detail, like one by one, and show you what they do.
And that was so wonderful to have, because there's like you said, there's very few resources available online, and help talk, they're great, but they're not the same as today I'm making a guitar, and we're going to start with nothing.
Well, that is kind of how this whole long journey came to what you're seeing right here. It started when I was 13, 14-year-old, eventually me learning how to CNC and learning how to CAD model, and then eventually you guys with the YouTube thing, and eventually, it was about time to actually make it, and this is, kind of the the result. And I think for the most part, I did all right. There's certainly some things that, thinking about it, that I would probably change the next go around. Well, first of all, one thing I know that I'm going to need to do going forward is probably replace the nut, because I don't know if you can hear this. If I bend it really hard, I can get it to shift position in the nut. And the reason why that is the Hosco nut files that I bought, even though they said they were gauged, they were just too wide for those 2 strings. Everything else is perfect. Those 2 strings I can get to click a little bit. And so I think if I were to go and do it again, I would just bite the bullet and spend money on the proper nut files. I think I would have saved myself a lot of heartache and not have to replace that so soon after building this brand new guitar. Along with that, I think I would probably add string trees. Now, I probably will still do that because I think that's also partially contributing to what I'm seeing here in the nut.
Mm-hmm.
And because the neck break angle, it's a flat headstock, and it's not a super rounded, you know, like 7-inch radius or anything. And so there's not much neck break angle on these 2 strings. So I think I would do that. I think I would probably shift the neck profile just a little bit, because even though it's actually very comfortable to play, the edge of the fretboard is a little sharp. Sometimes, especially if you're trying to thumb a chord, you know, it's well, that wasn't actually a chord.
Did you roll the edges of the fretboard?
I did. Well, okay, so I didn't technically roll it. What I did was I just took a chisel, or not a chisel, a file, and I chamfered them a little bit. I chamfered them a little bit, and then I just softened that chamfer with some like 320 grit sandpaper.
Yeah.
Just to give me enough where it's not going to cut my fingers, but it was still, it is actually coming to a point. It's not coming tangent to the fretboard edge itself. So if you look at it from this way, this might be hard to see on camera, I'll just show it to Rick, but you can actually see the edge of the black looking straight on. This edge right here is not flat. Yeah. It's actually part of the curvature of it.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's actually really nice.
It's very comfortable. It's just when you get to certain things like thumbing frets or whatever, it can get a little sharp. But that's not a huge deal. I think probably the most important thing that I would change is I would be much more careful about neck movement. How much would I take off of the neck in particular at any given time? Because that was the major source of most of my problems in this build.
Right, and you talked about that in a different video.
Yeah, I talked about the neck warp because it twists a little bit this way. Now, thankfully, it didn't impact the playing very much. It actually still plays great, but it took me like 3 hours of sanding.
Yeah.
To get these things level. And that was brutal, and I was so worried that I was going to have to refret it. And then I had to do a lot of extra work with the re-crowning and everything. And I think I just could have saved myself a lot of heartache if I would have paid more attention to wood movement and keeping everything straight as I'm going.
Wow, I got to tell you guys, what a journey this has been. We took this guitar all the way from concept to CAD to CAM to CNC, all the way now through final assembly and sound check, while simultaneously developing strategies in Fusion for modeling guitars and also developing a community around guitars in Fusion 360. Now, if you would have told me back then when I released my first video that this is what my life would have been like for the next 1.5 years, I would have called you crazy. But the guitar is finally here. I can finally play it, and honestly, I couldn't be happier with the results, even though there's some flaws, because this is my first time build, and I think I did all right for a first time build. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Now, I also want to say something, because while I was helping you guys in Fusion, many of you helped me with this build. So I received so much support, advice, constructive criticism throughout this process that really helped me become a better craftsman and ultimately helped me get this guitar across the finish line. So first of all, I want to say thank you to Rick Molloy, who joined us for this sound test and also helped me greatly with the sound for this channel. I would also like to say thank you to all the viewers who have been with me throughout this entire process. I'd like to say thank you to my Discord family, who are literally the coolest and most helpful people I've met on this planet. And especially my Patreon members, who have made it possible for me to keep doing it this long. So thank you so much. This channel could not have done this without you. And lastly, if any of you are going to go to Summer NAMM in the next few weeks, keep an eye out on the floor, because I'm going to be there roaming the floor, and I would love to meet any one of you. So until the next video, this is Austin, signing out.